The great hall of the Galactic Coalition fell silent as Ambassador Cathvar stepped forward. His blue skin had lost its usual bright color, now looking gray and tired. Behind him, floating screens showed the terrible truth that everyone already knew, but no one wanted to face. 40-7 worlds were gone. Not conquered or captured, but completely empty. The Vex swarm had eaten everything on them. Every plant, every animal, every person. Even the energy from the suns themselves had been drained away, leaving nothing but cold, dead rocks floating in space. Council members, Cathvar began, his voice shaking slightly. We have tried everything. Our best soldiers have fallen. Our strongest weapons do nothing. Our smartest generals cannot find a way to stop them. General Zixon stood up, his forearms crossed over his chest. The warrior looked angry, but everyone could see the fear in his eyes too. There must be something else we can do, some weapon we have not tried yet. What weapon? Asked Counselor Velana, her long tentacles moving nervously. The Vex eat energy itself. Every time we shoot at them, we just make them stronger. They take our power and use it to grow bigger. The screens behind Cathvar changed to show the latest battle reports. 3 more coalition fleets had been destroyed just yesterday. The captains had tried everything they could think of. Energy, weapons, missile attacks, even ramming their ships into the enemy. Nothing worked. The Vex just absorbed it all and kept coming. How long do we have? Someone asked from the back of the hall. Admiral Korath stood up slowly. His scales were a dark green color, which meant he was deeply worried. Our scientists believe the swarm will reach the core worlds within 6 months. Maybe less if they keep growing at this rate. The hall erupted in frightened voices. Representatives from dozens of worlds all talking at once, all asking the same questions. What could they do? Where could they run? How could they stop something that seemed impossible to kill? Cathvar raised his hand for silence. When the noise died down, he spoke again. His words made everyone even more afraid. There is one option we have not tried yet. One species we have not asked for help. No, General Zixon said immediately. Absolutely not. We cannot be that desperate. What species? Asked a young delegate from the Outer Rim worlds. She was new to the council and did not understand what they were talking about. Vel quote. Anna answered, her voice barely above a whisper. The humans, from the planet they call Earth. The reaction was immediate. Half the delegates started talking at once, their voices full of fear and disgust. The other half sat in shocked silence. Everyone knew about the humans, but no one liked to talk about them. Earth had been discovered 50 years ago by a coalition survey ship. The planet should have been impossible for life to exist. The gravity was crushing. The atmosphere was poisonous to most species. The weather was violent and unpredictable. Worst of all, nearly every living thing on the planet was designed to kill something else. But somehow the humans not only survived there, they thrived. They had built cities and traveled to space. They had created art and music and literature. They seemed almost normal until you looked closer and realized what they really were. The human ambassadors seemed pleasant enough, said one delegate hopefully. Admiral Korath pulled up classified files that made several council members turn away in horror. These are their military records. They have been fighting wars against each other for their entire history. They have weapons that can destroy continents. They have poisons that can kill every living thing on a planet. Their soldiers trained by doing things that would kill most of our people. The images on the screen showed human soldiers in training. They ran for hours without stopping. They fought with bare hands until they bled. They practiced with weapons that shot metal bullets instead of energy beams. They even practiced fighting underwater and in freezing cold. Look at their eyes, whispered Counselor Velana. Even the peaceful ones. There is something hunting behind those eyes. It was true. Every human the coalition had met seemed friendly and polite. But there was always something unsettling about them. They moved too quickly for such a heavy world. They healed too fast from injuries that should have been permanent. Their reflexes were too sharp, too ready for violence. Their planet made them into predators, said Dr. Lorek, the coalition's chief scientist. Everything there evolved to hunt or be hunted. The humans became the ultimate hunters. Which is exactly why we need them now, Cathvar said firmly. We have tried being civilized. We have tried being honorable and following the rules of war. It has not worked." He gestured to the screens showing the destroyed worlds. "The Vex do not care about honor. They do not follow rules. They just eat everything and move on. Maybe we need someone who can fight like they do." General Zixon slammed one of his hands on his desk. "You are talking about unleashing monsters on the galaxy." "The monsters are already here," Kethvar replied, quietly. "They are called the Vex Swarm and they are eating us alive. I am talking about fighting monsters with monsters." The debate went on for hours. Some delegates argued that asking the humans for help would be worse than facing the Vex. Others said that nothing could be worse than extinction. A few suggested that maybe the humans and the Vex would destroy each other, leaving the rest of the galaxy in peace. Finally, Admiral Korath stood up again. His scales had turned an even darker green. "I have seen the latest reports from our scouts. The Vex are not just growing bigger. They are learning. Each battle, they adapt faster. Each world they consume, they become smarter." He touched a control on his desk, and new images appeared on the screens. These showed Vex entities that looked different from the ones they had fought before. More complex, more dangerous. "At this rate, we will not have 6 months," he continued. "We may not have 6 weeks. Whatever we are going to do, we need to do it now." The vote was closer than anyone expected. Many delegates abstained, unable to choose between certain death and uncertain salvation. In the end, desperation won by just 3 votes. Within an hour, the fastest ship in the Coalition fleet was being prepared for launch. Captain Mordek, one of their best pilots, volunteered for the mission even though everyone knew it might be suicide. The humans had never invited anyone to their homeworld. No one knew how they would react to uninvited visitors. "What message should I carry?" Captain Mordek asked as he prepared to leave. Keth. Var handed him a data crystal that contained everything: the history of the Vex attacks, images of the destroyed worlds, scientific data about the enemy, and most importantly, a simple request for help. "Tell them the galaxy is dying," Kethvar said. "Tell them we have tried everything and failed. Tell them we are asking for their help even though we know what they are." As the courier ship disappeared into hyperspace, heading for the Sol system and the death world called Earth, the council chamber fell silent again. They had made their choice. Now they could only wait and hope. Some of them prayed to their various gods that the humans would help. Others prayed that they would refuse. A few prayed that somehow, against all odds, the Coalition would find another way before the humans arrived. But deep in their hearts, they all knew the truth. They had asked for heroes to save them from the darkness. Instead, they had called upon something much more dangerous. They had called upon Earth's children. And Earth's children were very good at one thing above all others. They were very good at killing. The alien message reached Earth on a Tuesday morning. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his coffee in the Pentagon when the encrypted signal came through. He had been waiting for something like this for years. Morrison was one of the few humans who had actually met the aliens face to face. He remembered their polite smiles and nervous movements. He remembered how they always kept their distance, as if he might suddenly attack them. Most of all, he remembered the fear in their eyes. Now he sat in a room full of Earth's most powerful people, reading their message for the 5th time. The words were simple enough. The aliens needed help. Something called the Vex Swarm was eating their worlds. They had tried everything and failed. Would Earth please help them? "So let me understand this," said General Patricia Wells, tapping her pen on the table. "These aliens have ignored us for 50 years. They treat us like dangerous animals. They refuse to share technology or invite us to their meetings, but now they want us to fight their war for them." President Martinez nodded slowly. "That seems to be the situation. What do we know about these Vex things?" Dr. Alan Carter, the scientist who studied alien biology, pulled up his notes. According to their data, the Vex are crystalline beings that exist partially in our reality and partially in some kind of energy dimension. They feed on energy itself, draining power from everything around them. "Can they be killed?" asked Admiral Susan Blake. The aliens say no. Every weapon they have tried just makes the Vex stronger. Energy weapons get absorbed. Physical projectiles pass right through them. Even nuclear weapons just feed them more power. Morrison set down his coffee cup and looked around the room. They would not come to us unless they were desperate. Really, desperate. The aliens are terrified of us, but they are more terrified of these Vex things. Why are they afraid of us? Asked a young aide who was new to alien relations. The room went quiet. Finally, General Wells answered. Because we are what we are. Every other species in the galaxy evolved on peaceful worlds. We evolved on Earth. Everything here tries to kill everything else. We became very good at surviving by becoming very good at killing. She pulled up files showing Earth's history. Wars that lasted decades. Weapons that could destroy entire cities. Soldiers who fought in conditions that would kill most aliens instantly. Look at our training programs, Wells continued. We make our soldiers run until they collapse, then get up and run more. We teach them to fight with their bare hands. We drop them in deserts and jungles and tell them to survive with nothing but what they can carry. The aide looked shocked. That sounds horrible. To them it is horrible, Morrison agreed. To us it is Tuesday. We do not even think about it anymore. But to species that evolved on garden worlds with gentle weather and friendly animals, we look like monsters. President Martinez leaned back in her chair. So the question is, do we help them? And if we do, what kind of help do we send? We could send medical supplies, suggested someone. Food, maybe some defensive technology. Admiral Blake shook her head. They do not want medical supplies. They want us to fight. Look at their message again. They are not asking for aid or support. They are asking for military assistance. They want us to be their attack dogs, said General Wells bluntly. After 50 years of keeping us locked away on our own world, now they want us to come out and bite their enemies for them. Morrison looked at the alien data again. The numbers were staggering. 47 worlds destroyed. Billions of people dead. Entire solar systems drained of energy. The Vex swarm was not just winning, it was growing stronger with every victory. What do you think, Jake? President Martinez asked. You know these aliens better than anyone. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the alien ambassadors he had met. They were decent people as far as he could tell. They had families and hopes and dreams just like humans did. They did not deserve to be eaten by space monsters. I think we helped them, he said, finally, but not the way they expect. What do you mean? Morrison smiled, and everyone in the room suddenly understood why the aliens were afraid of humans. They asked for heroes. They want someone to ride in and save the day with honor and courage and all that noble stuff. But heroes play by rules. Heroes try to minimize casualties. Heroes show mercy to defeated enemies. He gestured to the alien data showing the destroyed worlds. These Vex things do not play by rules. They do not care about honor or mercy. They just eat everything and move on. You cannot fight monsters by being noble. So what do we send them? Asked General Wells. Morrison. S smile got wider and more frightening. We send them exactly what they asked for. They want Earth's help. They want our military. Fine. But they get the real thing. They get us as we really are. The orders went out that afternoon. Not a general call for volunteers, because there would be too many. This mission needed specialists, veterans of the worst wars Earth had ever fought. People who had seen the darkest side of human nature and learned to use it as a weapon. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Davis got his orders while training new recruits in the Alaskan wilderness. He was teaching them how to survive in temperatures that would freeze most aliens solid. When his phone rang and he heard what Earth needed, he just asked one question. When do we leave? Davis had fought in 3 different wars on 3 different continents. He had seen cities burning and children crying and good people dying for stupid reasons. He had learned that sometimes the only way to stop evil was with something worse. Sergeant Major Lisa Chen got her call while testing new explosives. In the Nevada desert, she was an expert in making things blow up in creative and destructive ways. Her specialty was urban warfare, fighting enemies in their own tunnels and bunkers where normal soldiers could not go. How much firepower are we authorized to carry? Was her only question. Chen had spent years fighting in the underground tunnels beneath enemy cities. She had learned that hesitation meant death, and mercy was a luxury that got your friends killed. She was very good at her job, and her job was destruction. Commander Pete Johnson was pulled from his nuclear submarine, deep in the Pacific Ocean. He was a hunter who had spent years learning patience and precision in the dark depths, where one mistake could kill everyone on board. He read his orders once, nodded, and began calculating how many torpedoes his ship could carry. Dr. Maria Santos was the last person chosen for the mission. She was a combat medic who had kept soldiers alive in situations that should have killed them. She could perform surgery while enemy bullets flew overhead. She could find ways to heal wounds that would have been fatal to anyone else. But she was also an excellent shot with a rifle, and she knew exactly where to hit someone to make them stop fighting permanently. These 4 people, and others like them, represented something the galaxy had never seen before. They were not heroes in any traditional sense. They were survivors from a world that had tried to kill them every day of their lives. They had learned to be harder, faster, and more dangerous than anything else in their environment. Most importantly, they had learned that sometimes being a monster was the only way to protect the things you loved. The ship that would carry them was called the ESS Defiance. It was humanity's most advanced warship, built with technologies that the aliens had never seen. It carried weapons that had been designed for fighting other humans, creatures who were smart enough to be truly dangerous. As the ship prepared for launch from Earth orbit, alien observers monitoring the Sol system detected energy readings they could not identify. The humans were using some kind of technology that did not appear in any of their databases. One alien analyst sent a worried message to his superiors. "The humans are coming," he wrote. "I do not know what they will do when they arrive, but I am afraid we are about to find out." The ship disappeared into hyperspace, carrying Earth's answer to the galaxy's plea for help. They had asked for heroes to save them from the darkness. Instead, Earth was sending its children. And Earth's children were very good at bringing light to dark places, even if they had to burn everything down to do it. The ESS Defiance came out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, like a bullet fired from the darkness. What the humans saw through their windows made even these hardened veterans pause in shock. The space between the planets was alive. With monsters. Millions of crystalline beings floated in the void, each one the size of a small moon. They pulsed with stolen light, energy they had drained from dead worlds and dying stars. They moved together like a school of fish, but fish made of living glass and hungry starlight. "Mother of God," whispered Lieutenant Murphy from his position at the communications station. "How many of them are there?" The ship's computer answered in its calm, emotionless voice. "Sensors detect approximately 2.3 million individual entities. Current energy readings suggest they have consumed the equivalent of 17 complete solar systems." Colonel Davis stood on the bridge, studying the tactical display with the same calm attention he had given to every other battlefield in his long career. Around the Vex swarm, he could see the Coalition fleet fighting desperately and uselessly. The alien ships fired their energy weapons, and the Vex simply absorbed the beams like flowers drinking sunlight. They launched missiles, and the projectiles passed through the crystalline beings without causing any damage. Their defensive shields held for a few minutes before being drained completely, leaving the ships helpless. It was like watching children fight tigers with sticks. "Incoming transmission from the Coalition flagship," Murphy announced. The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of Admiral Korath. The alien commander looked exhausted and desperate. His scales were dark with stress, and his eyes held the hollow look of someone who had watched too many friends die. "Human vessel," he began, his voice cracking slightly. "I am Admiral Korath of the Coalition Defense Force. We are grateful for your arrival, though I fear you have come only to share our fate." Davis stepped forward, his movements casual and controlled. To the alien admiral, the human looked completely calm, as if he had just arrived for a friendly visit instead of the galaxy's worst battle. "Admiral," Davis said politely, "this is Colonel Ryan Davis of the Earth Defense Force. We are here to help. Tell me about these Vex things. Korath's expression showed a mixture of hope and disbelief. They feed on energy, Colonel. All energy. Our weapons only make them stronger. They drain our power systems, our shields, even the life force from our bodies. We estimate the swarm will consume the entire galaxy within 6 months. Davis nodded thoughtfully, as if the Admiral had just described a minor technical problem. I see. Admiral, I need you to pull your forces back to minimum safe distance. We are going to try something different. Colonel, with all respect, if our most advanced weapons cannot harm them, what can your single ship possibly do? Davis smiled, and for the first time, Admiral Korath began to understand why the galaxy feared humanity. It was not a cruel smile, or an angry one. It was the smile of a professional who had been given an interesting puzzle to solve. Admiral, Davis said patiently, you have been fighting these things like civilized beings. We are not civilized. We are from Earth. The Coalition fleet pulled back as ordered, confusion and growing despair evident in their radio chatter. They watched as the human ship moved toward the swarm alone, a tiny speck against the overwhelming mass of crystalline death dot on the Defiance. The crew prepared for battle with the same methodical care they had learned in a dozen wars. But this was not going to be like any battle they had fought before. Nuclear mines deployed and ready, Colonel, reported Sergeant Chen from her position at the weapons console. She had spent the last hour modifying their nuclear warheads, turning them from simple bombs into something more creative. Kinetic bombardment system online, added the weapons officer. Tungsten rods armed and targeted. Commander Johnson studied his sensor readings with the patience of a submarine hunter. Sir, I am detecting massive gravitational distortions. These things might be existing partially in folded space. Dr. Santos finished her final preparations. Biological warfare packages ready for deployment. The synthetic viruses should attack their crystalline matrix structure, assuming they have one. Davis opened a channel to the Coalition fleet. All ships, maintain distance and prepare to record everything. Earth wants to know how this goes. The first attack was almost disappointing in its simplicity. Chen triggered her nuclear mines when the lead Vex entities passed through their proximity. Fields. The explosions lit up space like miniature suns, brilliant flashes of atomic fire that should have destroyed anything in their path. The Vex absorbed every bit of energy and kept coming. If anything, they seemed brighter than before. Phase 1. Complete, Davis announced calmly, as if nuclear weapons failing completely was just a minor setback. Beginning Phase 2. The kinetic bombardment was more impressive. Tungsten rods, each one the size of a telephone pole, slammed into the swarm from multiple directions at tremendous speed. The impacts were spectacular, shattering several Vex entities and sending fragments spinning through space. For a moment, the Coalition fleet dared to hope. Then they watched in horror as the shattered pieces began to flow back together like living mercury, reforming into complete entities within minutes. They are regenerating. Admiral Korath's voice was hollow with defeat. Colonel, we appreciate your efforts, but Phase 3, Davis interrupted. Dr. Santos released her biological weapons into space. Clouds of synthetic viruses designed to attack silicon-based life forms drifted through the swarm like invisible fog. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the Vex began to convulse. Dot cracks appeared in their crystalline structures, spreading like spiderwebs through their bodies. Entire sections of the swarm began to dim and crumble. The Coalition fleet watched in amazement as thousands of Vex entities simply fell apart and crumbled into space dust. It is working, Admiral Korath shouted over the radio. Your biological weapons are destroying them. But even as he spoke, the remaining Vex were adapting. Their immune systems evolved in real time, developing defenses against the synthetic viruses. Within minutes, the biological attack had stopped working completely. Colonel, Korath's voice was urgent now. Your weapons are having some effect, but they are adapting too quickly. In a few more minutes, they will be immune to everything you have used. Davis nodded calmly. Then it is time for Phase 4. He opened a channel to his crew. All hands prepare for ramming speed. The bridge fell silent. Even these experienced veterans looked shocked. "Sir?" Lieutenant Murphy's voice cracked. "Ramming speed?" "You heard me," Davis replied. "These things feed on energy. They absorb projectiles. They adapt to biological weapons. But they are still made of matter and physics still applies." Commander Johnson understood first. "You are going to ram them at full speed." "Not just ram them," Davis corrected. "We are going to ram them while detonating our entire fuel supply, ammunition stores, and reactor core simultaneously. Maximum kinetic impact combined with the biggest explosion we can manage." The implications hit everyone at once. Dr. Santos spoke what they were all thinking. "That is suicide." Davis looked at his crew, these volunteers who had followed him across the galaxy to fight impossible monsters. "Maybe, but these things have eaten worlds full of innocent people. They have killed billions, and Earth sent us here to stop them." He activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the Colonel. We came out here to do a job, and we are going to finish it. The escape pods are ready for anyone who wants to leave. No questions asked, no shame in it. But I'm staying with the ship." Nobody moved. Sergeant Chen was the first to speak. "Hell, Colonel, I did not come all this way just to watch fireworks from a distance. Besides," added Commander Johnson with a grim smile, "who is going to tell Earth we ran away from a bunch of space crystals?" Dr. Santos checked her medical kit one last time, then set it aside. "If we are doing this, we do it right. I am staying." Throughout the ship, not a single person moved toward the escape pods. Davis felt a surge of pride in his species and his crew. "Then let us show these things what Earth is really made of." The Defiance turned toward the heart of the swarm and began to accelerate toward the largest concentration of Vex entities. Behind them, the Coalition fleet watched in stunned silence as the human ship flew straight toward certain death, carrying the hopes of the galaxy in its hull. The Coalition fleet watched in complete silence as the human ship accelerated toward the center of the Vex swarm. On dozens of bridge screens across the alien fleet, commanders witnessed something they had never seen before. A species choosing certain death rather than accepting defeat. Admiral Korath stood frozen at his command station. In his 300 years of military service, he had seen courage many times. He had seen sacrifice and heroism. But this was something different. This was madness disguised as strategy. "Sir," his communications officer whispered, "the human ship is accelerating past all safe limits. Their engine readings are beyond anything in our databases." On the Defiance, warning alarms screamed through every corridor as the ship pushed, far beyond what it was designed to handle. The metal hull groaned and twisted under stresses it was never meant to endure. But Colonel Davis had planned for this moment. Every safety system had been disabled. Every protocol had been thrown away. This was no longer a ship. It was a weapon with humanity's signature written on its hull. "Impact in 60 seconds, reported Lieutenant Murphy, his voice steady despite knowing he was counting down to his own death. The Vex swarm had finally noticed the approaching ship. Millions of crystalline entities began moving toward the Defiance, preparing to drain its energy and add its materials to their collective mass. They had done this thousands of times before with Coalition ships. This would be no different. 30 seconds to impact, Murphy continued. All systems still functioning. Sergeant Chen smiled as she watched her weapons display. Every explosive device on the ship was armed and ready. Nuclear warheads, chemical bombs, fuel cells converted to makeshift incendiaries. Everything humanity had learned about destroying things was packed into one final explosion. 10 seconds to impact. Commander Johnson gripped his console as the ship shook violently around them. Through the main view screen, the Vex entities looked like mountains made of living crystal, beautiful and terrible in their alien perfection. 5 seconds. Dr. Santos closed her eyes and thought of home, of Earth's blue skies and white clouds, of children playing in safe parks and families having dinner together, all the peaceful, gentle things that their violence was meant to protect. Impact. The Defiance hit the largest Vex entity at nearly 1/3 the speed of light. The collision was beyond anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The ship's mass, transformed into pure kinetic energy, struck the crystalline being with the force of an exploding star. But that was only the beginning. As the hull cracked and the ship died around them, Colonel Davis triggered the final sequence. Every weapon, every fuel cell, every piece of explosive material on the ship detonated at the same moment. The nuclear reactor went into meltdown, the fusion engines overloaded, even the emergency supplies were converted into bombs. The explosion could be seen from neighboring star systems. When the brilliant light finally faded, a sphere of superheated gas expanded outward from the impact point. The massive Vex entity was completely gone, not just destroyed but erased from existence. The explosion spread to other Vex nearby, shattering them like glass windows in an earthquake. But the real damage came from something the humans had discovered about their enemy. The Vex were connected, sharing energy and information across vast distances through some kind of network. When one died, its stored energy was lost to the entire collective. When hundreds died at once, the shockwave traveled through the whole swarm. For the first time in 3 years, the Vex swarm stopped moving forward. Across the Coalition fleet, sensors detected something that seemed impossible. The swarm was pulling back. Not destroyed, there were still millions of entities remaining, but they were damaged and confused. For the first time since the war began, the Vex seemed afraid. Admiral Korath stared at his tactical display in complete disbelief. "They are retreating," he whispered. His science officer was running calculations frantically. "Sir, the energy feedback from the human ship's destruction disrupted their network connections. They have lost approximately 12% of their total energy reserves." "One ship," Korath said quietly. "One human ship accomplished what our entire fleet could not." But even as the Coalition celebrated their first victory in years, new contacts appeared on their sensors. More human ships, dozens of them, dropping out of hyperspace in perfect military formation. The lead ship was the ESS Retribution, and its commander was requesting immediate communication with Admiral Kor, "Ath." The face that appeared on his screen was cold, professional, and completely without mercy. This was a person who had seen too much war and learned to use violence like a precision tool. "Admiral," the human said, "this is General Patricia Wells of the Earth Defense Force. I understand you have been having trouble with parasites." Behind her, Korath could see the bridge of a ship designed specifically for war. Not the clean, efficient warfare of civilized species, but the brutal, total warfare that had shaped humanity for millennia. "General Wells," Korath managed to say, "we are grateful for Earth's assistance. The sacrifice of Colonel Davis and his crew will never be forgotten." Wells's expression did not change. "Colonel Davis opened the door, Admiral. Now we are going to walk through it. These Vex made one serious mistake." "What mistake was that?" Wells smiled, and Korath felt his blood freeze in his veins. "They attacked our galaxy. What followed was not war in any sense that the Coalition understood. It was extermination carried out with industrial efficiency. The human fleet spread through the system like a disease, attacking the Vex with weapons and tactics that defied all military logic. Captain Lisa Rodriguez led the scout ships in suicide runs directly into Vex formations, gathering intelligence, while ramming individual entities. Each scout mission was a death sentence, but the data they broadcast back was invaluable. "They lose coordination when separated from the main group," Rodriguez reported moments before her ship was destroyed. "The network connection has distance limits." Captain Bradley Singh confirmed this with his bomber squadron. "Concentrated attacks can disrupt their energy sharing, hit them fast in sequence, and the feedback works against them." The humans attacked, not just the Vex themselves, but the space around them. They detonated nuclear weapons in empty space, creating electromagnetic pulses that interfered with the aliens' energy absorption. They launched clouds of metal particles that disrupted quantum communication. They even used their ship engines to create gravitational distortions that tore the crystalline beings apart at the atomic level. Commander Elena Vasquez developed something she called ghost shots. She used magnetic accelerators to fire clouds of iron particles at nearly the speed of light. The Vex could not absorb kinetic energy they could not detect, and the metal shrapnel cut through their formations like invisible knives. But the most terrifying part was how creative the humans became. Dr. Anthony Foster, a scientist turned weapons designer, created feedback bombs that mimicked Vex energy signatures. When the aliens tried to absorb them, the devices released waves of destructive interference that caused entire clusters to tear themselves apart from the inside. Major Sandra Kim developed a digital virus that spread through the Vex communication network, causing them to lose track of which entities belonged to which group. The resulting confusion led to cannibalistic feeding frenzies as the aliens turned on each other. Admiral Rachel Torres commanded a carrier called the Vengeance and specialized in what she called overfeeding. Her fighters would locate the largest Vex entities and deliberately feed them massive amounts of energy until the beings literally exploded from overconsumption. The Coalition fleet watched in growing horror as humanity treated the seemingly unstoppable Vex swarm like a particularly troublesome pest problem. There was no honor in their fighting, no nobility or mercy, just methodical, efficient killing on a scale that defied comprehension. They are not fighting a war, Admiral Korath said to his staff in private. They are conducting an extermination. The truth of his words became clear during what became known as the Battle of the Nexus. The largest concentration of Vex entities had gathered around a dying star, slowly draining its energy. The Coalition expected a massive assault, but General Wells had a different idea. "Why fight them when we can move the battlefield?" she asked during the briefing. Major Thompson's status on Project Starbreaker? Major Daniel Thompson, an engineer who had helped terraform Mars, smiled grimly. "Ready for deployment, General. We have enough antimatter to crack that star wide open." Admiral Korath was horrified. "You want to destroy the star? The gravitational effects alone could damage 17 systems." Wells looked at him with the patience of someone explaining simple math to a child. "Admiral, these things have been draining that star for 6 months. It is going to die anyway. We are just changing the schedule." The plan was insane by any military standard. Humanity intended to detonate the star the Vex were feeding on, creating an artificial supernova that would destroy millions of entities in a single blast. The gravitational disruption would scatter the survivors across half the galaxy, breaking their network permanently. It worked perfectly. The artificial supernova lit up the entire galactic rim. When the radiation cleared and space stabilized, the great Vex swarm was gone. The victory celebration aboard the Coalition flagship was strangely quiet. They had won, but nobody seemed happy about it. The Vex swarm was gone, scattered to the empty spaces between stars. The galaxy was safe, but the beings who had saved them were still there. And that fact made everyone nervous. Admiral Korath walked through his ship's corridors, listening to the whispered conversations of his crew. They were grateful to be alive, but they were also afraid. The humans had shown them something that no civilized species wanted to see. They had shown them what total war really looked like. The Coalition had fought the Vex for 3 years, using their best weapons and finest strategies. They had lost 47 worlds and billions of lives. The humans had solved the problem in 6 months by destroying a star. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "General Wells is requesting a private meeting with you." Korath nodded and made his way to the secure conference room. He found the human general waiting for him, staring out a viewport at the space, where the artificial supernova had burned. Even now, hours later, the radiation was still visible as a faint glow against the stars. "General Wells," he said carefully, "the Coalition Council wishes to express its deepest gratitude for Earth's assistance in this matter." Wells did not turn around. "But," Korath hesitated, "how do you tell someone who just saved your entire civilization that you are afraid of them? But some among the Council wonder what happens now. Your species has demonstrated that you can destroy any threat the galaxy might face. Some ask whether Earth might itself become such a threat." Wells was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded tired. "Admiral, do you know what we call ourselves back home?" The human race. As in, we are always running. Running from predators, running toward prey, running from our past, running toward our future. We have never learned how to stop. She finally turned to face him, and Korath saw something in her eyes he had not expected. Sadness. You asked for heroes, Admiral. Heroes are noble and brave and honorable. They fight fair and show mercy to defeated enemies. Heroes follow rules and care about honor. She gestured toward the viewport where the supernova's light was fading. We are not heroes. We are exactly what you said we were. We are monsters. The only difference is that now we are your monsters. Korath felt a chill run through his body. What does that mean for the galaxy? Wells walked to the conference table and sat down heavily. For the first time since he had met her, she looked human. Not like a weapon or a predator, but like a person who was very tired. It means you need to decide what kind of galaxy you want to live in, she said. For 3 years you tried to fight the Vex with honor and civilization. You followed the rules of war. You tried to minimize casualties. You showed mercy when you could, and they nearly ate you alive. She pulled up a holographic display showing the human fleet scattered throughout the system. Even at rest, the ships looked dangerous. They were built for war, not exploration or diplomacy. We did not follow any rules, Wells continued. We did not care about honor or mercy or fighting fair. We identified the threat and we eliminated it using every weapon we could think of. We committed genocide against an entire species without losing a single night's sleep. You saved us, Korath said quietly. Yes. But what happens the next time? What happens when another threat appears? Will you try to handle it with your civilized methods? Or will you call us again? The question hung in the air between them like a weapon waiting to be fired. And what happens, Wells continued, if someday we decide that the threat is you? Before Korath could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. His communications officer's voice came over the intercom, filled with panic. Admiral, to the bridge immediately. We are detecting massive energy signatures from deep space. Multiple contacts, unknown configuration. Wells and Korath ran to the bridge together. What they saw on the main screen made both of them freeze in terror. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Not Vex entities, but actual constructed vessels. They were enormous, each one larger than any ship in the Coalition fleet. They were also old, impossibly old, with hull designs that predated every known civilization. How many? Korath asked. 17. Ships so far, sir. All of them are broadcasting the same message. Put it on screen. The image that appeared was unlike anything they had ever seen. The being was humanoid in basic shape, but clearly not human. Its skin was metallic gray, its eyes were solid black, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding stone. I am Overlord Kethmal of the Dominion Fleet, the being said. We have been observing this galaxy for 10 million years, waiting for a species to prove itself worthy of our attention. The destruction of the Vex swarm was impressive. Wells stepped forward, her hand moving instinctively toward her sidearm. This is General Patricia Wells of the Earth Defense Force. State your intentions. The ancient being's black eyes focused on her with disturbing intensity. Ah, the humans. Yes, we have been particularly interested in your species, your homeworld, your violent history, your capacity for destruction. You are very much like us when we were young. What do you want? Wells demanded. We want to meet our successors, Kethmal replied. For millions of years, we have ruled this galaxy from the shadows. We seeded worlds with life, guided evolution, eliminated species that became too dangerous. We were the guardians and the executioners. The implications hit both Wells and Korath at the same moment. These beings had been manipulating galactic history for millions of years. They had been the power behind everything. But we are old now, Kethmal continued. Tired. We wish to retire to dimensions beyond your understanding. But first, we must choose our replacements. Admiral Korath found his voice. You want us to replace you? The Coalition? The ancient being's laugh was like breaking glass. You? The gentle gardeners who could not even defend themselves from simple energy parasites? No, Admiral. We are here to offer the position to the only species that has proven itself capable of the necessary brutality. He looked directly at Wells. We offer the humans the chance to become the new rulers of this galaxy, to guide evolution, eliminate threats, and maintain order through strength. Wells stared at the ancient being for a long moment. Around the bridge, everyone waited for her answer. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. No, she said finally. Kethquote Mal seemed surprised. No? You refuse the chance to rule over trillions of beings? We refuse the chance to become you, Wells replied firmly. We came here to fight monsters, not to become them. She turned to Admiral Korath. The coalition saved itself. You reached out for help when you needed it. You made the hard choice, to ask for assistance from people you feared. That takes more courage than anything we did. Wells looked back at the ancient overlord. Find someone else for your job. We are going home. Kethamal's expression was unreadable. You may change your minds. Power has a way of calling to those who know how to use it. Maybe, Wells admitted, but not today. The ancient ships disappeared as suddenly as they had arrived, leaving the coalition and human fleets alone in space. Admiral Korath looked at Wells with new respect. You could have ruled the galaxy. Why did you refuse? Wells smiled sadly. Because the moment we said yes, we would have stopped being the people you called for help. We would have become the people you needed help from. She stood up and headed for the door. Besides, somebody needs to keep an eye on us monsters. Make sure we do not get too comfortable with our power. As the human fleet prepared to return to Earth, Admiral Korath sent a message to the Coalition Council. The galaxy was safe from the Vex, and the ancient dominion had departed. But something else had changed. For the first time in galactic history, the strongest species had chosen not to rule over the weaker ones. The humans had shown that it was possible to have power and not abuse it. They had proven that monsters could choose to be heroes. But Korath also knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and there would be other threats. When that time came, they would need their monsters again. And Earth would answer the call, because that is what monsters do when they choose to be heroes. They protect the things they love, even from themselves.